Welcome to Uncorked, Wine, Business, and Life with Bill Green. I'm Gerald Colton. We're in beautiful Boca Raton, Florida. And as always, we have a great guest today, somebody who has a story that I think a whole lot of people will want to hear. Hey, Bill.
Thanks, Gerald. Stewart Gold, our friend from Boca Raton, Florida, is just so inspirational. I think our audience is just going to love listening to Stewart's story. Corporate lawyer for a bunch of years, made a pivotal change in his life after being married and having 2 children, and decided he wanted to follow some passion. And that's what Uncorked is all about. And he turned out that his passion was to be an entrepreneur. He invented an amazingly cool product. You're going to hear all about it. He went on Shark Tank. He got a deal from Kevin O'Leary, an iconic global investor. And we're really excited to have you on the show, Stewart.
I'm excited to be here.
So give us kind of the early years of Stu Gold, growing up, born in Philly, which we love Philly, big time Eagles fan.
Go Birds.
And he goes to law school. So tell your story and how you kind of got up to the point of going to England.
Sure. I mean, in all honesty, I followed a pretty, typical path for a young Jewish kid in South Florida. Went to a private school, went to University of Michigan. Wasn't positive what I was going to do I wanted to do out of college. Got a political science degree, and then went to law school at University of Florida. Got my first job at a law firm in New York, but kind of unfortunately, it was during the financial crash, 2009.
Yeah.
Yep. And the law firm I was working for, I saw it was going under, and I made a jump to in-house job at a hospital, which then eventually brought me down to Florida, where I was a in-house counsel and then a general counsel for a number of healthcare companies in Florida. And that kind of got me up to the point where in 2019, we made a big life change and decided to move from Florida to northern England. The circumstances around that were basically, really sadly, my wife's sister had passed away tragically at a young age, at 29 years old, which was devastating for, her family, myself, and when you have that sort of event happen in your life, you kind of take inventory of where you're at, what you're doing. It took really a while for us to kind of get our heads together and figure out what the next move is. My wife actually spent a number of years in England growing up in northern England with her family. Her dad was at one of the army bases out there. They have a big base in a small town called Nasborough, England. And she had her fondest memories from growing up there, growing up in England, and always kind of was a goal of hers to try to get back there. So during that time, my wife made the suggestion, hey, I would love to, get to England. And I said, well, I don't know how we get to England. If you could get to England, you could tell me. And she said, well, I'll apply for jobs, but then you have to get a visa. And, I said to her, listen, I was a general counsel at the time. I was doing well.
And you were young parents too.
Young parents. At that time, we had a 1-year-old son. And, I never really thought much of it. I thought she just kind of, was going through a really difficult time, needed a change. So I said, listen, if you could find a job over there and get a visa, I'll go. So about, maybe 18 months later, she woke up one morning. She said, guess what? I got an email from DLA Piper. We got a visa and we got to be in England in 3 months.
And were you like, oh no? Or
I don't know if I could curse you to blur me. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, no, you can.
You can now.
I try to be a man of my word in life. And, I knew at that time, I never expected, I was following this really straight path, right? This path of mostly any kind of, young Jewish guy, came up from a good family, I was doing everything the right way. And, this opportunity came up and I said to myself, my wife really needs this. And quite frankly, I was kind of, feeling antsy with everything that was going on. And I said I could use this myself. It was really difficult because I was working for my father's company at the time. I had an apartment. I had very close colleagues. So it was really a difficult few months, that separation period.
But Stu, your father was a doctor, medical school trained. He was working as a physician, and he pivoted in his life to being an entrepreneur businessman.
Isn't that funny?
And you are a
doesn't
lawyer.
fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
So I guess was he supportive at all?
He was, to their credit. I think at first it was such a shock to my family because this came out of nowhere really. So I think it was shock. And listen, like any other family, rightfully so, there was a bit of anger, a bit of grief about the situation because I was taking my young grandson, which, but to their credit, both my parents were incredibly supportive. Once they kind of let it sit for a second and they said, you got to do what you got to do.
And wait a minute though, where you live, Northern England, was how far from Heathrow? Like were they?
So it's a pain. It's such a pain.
I know, that's what it pissed us all off. Right?
Yeah,
It's not
Your
just a
folks
flight
would
across
complain all the time.
ocean.
It wasn't like you just take a little puddle jumper across the pond. You kind of made them work a little bit.
Exactly. So it was actually a beautiful town. I call it like the Boca Raton equivalent in England, called Harrogate. It was an old spa town where people used to go and hundreds of years ago to get fresh spa water and the revitalizing water in England. So it was a beautiful town, but it was a 3.5 hour car ride from London. And, it's about door to door from here to where we were, it was about 22 hours. So it was a long, difficult trip.
And then COVID comes.
And then COVID comes. So I went to England initially with the idea that I would do some writing. I had sold some movie scripts in the past. I was like, okay, I'm going to take a writing course, kind of spend a year to kind of live out this kind of passion of mine. And at the same time, take care of my young son. But then COVID hits, and England has one of the worst lockdowns in the world, right? You needed to show ID anytime you left the house. You needed to, you had like an hour where you could walk your dog. I mean, people were, it was one of those things like out of the movies where they were spraying their grocery bags with, the Lysol and everything. And it was very strange. It was just a weird time.
How long did you not see family during that? Because obviously there was no international travel.
So I think we went like about a year, and then there was like we were allowed. I don't think people weren't allowed to come to England, but we were allowed to go back to the States. So my sister got married during that time. It was the strangest thing. We took a plane, like a 747. I don't know how many seater, 3 or whatever, 400 seater, and there were 6 people on the plane, which was amazing because, like, if you ever sat on a 747 with 5 other people, it's the greatest thing ever. But it was I think, as we all experienced during that time, and I'm sure you guys have your own stories, it was just, the world was weird. It was just weird things were happening, and, it was just a strange time, especially in England.
So you're in England basically without a real job, or
Yes,
at least
correct.
a formal job.
Yes.
Your wife's working,
Yes.
and you're raising a young son, and then you have another.
Yes.
So talk about what the inspiration was that had you wind up on the coolest show anybody with entrepreneurial spirit could ever be on.
Yeah, so during COVID, there wasn't much to do. We had a little garden out back. It turned out that my neighbors below me, we became very close friends with. They had 2 girls that were the same age, or one of the girls was the same age as my oldest son. And they had a young daughter who was about a year old. And during that time, I had my second son, Weston, right during COVID.
With a Y, too. Cool.
Yeah, with a Y.
Cool name.
Yeah. So, we would sit down in the back, we would drink wine, not anything like this delicious wine, but, there was a little liquor store. There was one of the only shops open about, a few blocks away. We would walk over there with our masks on, spend way too long in there because, we had nothing else to do.
It was wine o'clock.
Right, it was
all
wine
day
o'clock.
long.
There would be a line out the door of 12 people at 10 a.m. in the morning. So we'd sit out back, and one day, he was changing his daughter's diaper on the grass outside, and he had this crazy thing on his head, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, are you insane? What is this thing? And it was like a covered coat hanger with a little plush toy at the end, right? And, I spent a minute, like, after, trying to process, like, my brain of what was going on, and I saw him changing his daughter's diaper, and I saw his daughter, like, on the grass, like, giggling and responding and laughing and being really happy, and, he was tickling her, and I said, it really hit me for a second. I was like, I have, a young son, he is, changing diapers is just impossible sometimes. They're kicking, they're rolling, they're squirming, and what nowadays what parents are doing is they're taking phones and putting it in the baby's face, right? And having done that myself before and actually having dropped the phone right on my baby's face and causing them to cry, I was
Why
like,
can't you just tie the kids down?
You
I
could,
mean,
yeah,
right?
that was
I
plan.
never understood that.
That was plan B to get those straps and just tie the baby down. That
Right.
was, if this didn't work out, that was going to be the second business.
I'm asking Amy how many diapers you changed of your 3 kids. With that technique, thankfully you didn't.
Exactly.
But this was actually part of the idea. We saw other solutions on the market where the baby is restrained and they're tied up. And we're like, we don't want to restrain the baby. This day and age, the truth is a lot of dads are taking a very active role in raising their baby. A lot of, especially after COVID, a lot of dads are home, in the house. They're doing, a lot of the dirty work. And we saw opportunity to create something on the market that was really geared towards dads. And when you look at the baby product market, there's really not much out there at all geared for dads. It's all, pretty much for moms. So we saw a real opportunity in that to create a product that would, be new and innovative in the market.
And
All
was
right,
there any?
so let's get the product.
And while you're doing it,
you want to talk? Let's talk about this, and then we'll backtrack on the whole shark thing.
That's great. Okay.
Good, Stu. Let's.
Okay.
And you can even give us a presentation.
Sure.
But,
We're not messing up my hair.
Yeah,
And,
no, I'll mess
and was there anything on the market as an aid in changing babies?
So there's a few things. There's something called the Snoofy Bee, which is a really nice product. It's a mat that you actually restrain the baby. You tie the baby kind of down with it's a nice product. I think it's done really well, and but it just wasn't. It lacked the interactiveness that we were looking for, right? Like there's something about interaction, especially this day and age, like with so much technology. Everyone's answer to every problem is more technology, right? And we don't want to go that way. There's opportunity to not have technology, to introduce something fun and playful that makes parents smile and babies smile without that, and that's kind of the direction that we were looking to go.
It's kind of cool to have something to entertain your kid.
Yes.
It doesn't have to get charged.
No, exactly.
And we've had thousands of years of changing babies without technology.
Of course. And listen, one of the big things that we read all the time or we see is that, hey, I've been doing this for, 200 years without this product, but it's like anything else. If you could just add a little improvement, make it a little bit more fun, make the experience a little more enjoyable, get dads involved in it. It's little stuff. We've been doing, plenty of things in life without, we didn't have toilet paper for, the first few, it's, you do things
you don't
that
have triple ply Schleiman back there.
Right.
And I think what, you explained to me earlier and what I saw on the show was it's entertaining for the child, but the child is seeing this toy that they're wildly intrigued in front of your face, right? So talk about the kind of what that means, and I'm sure you've talked to
Take us through
psychologists and so
Yeah,
forth.
so this is a modular system. We look at it, right? I know it seems crazy, but we spent 6 months going through different designs and different looks and feels. I mean, it looks simple,
And Stu, but you started with he had a hanger and something hanging. So the concept was something on your head and something hanging between you and the baby.
yes,
Okay.
that was it. Is that how do you get, when you look at this, and I'll put it on, and it's all, everything is really custom designed. It's baby safe Velcro so the baby can't get their finger trapped. I mean, one thing I do want to say is that there's so many products out there on the market that, aren't safety tested, that, people buy from Amazon, that come from, factories that, don't do quality checks. And for us, it's really important that every piece, every design is, was checked, was the most safe and kind of the highest quality.
And that's a great lawyer thing. I've actually seen some terrible incidences in class actions on product liability.
What do you guys
stuff on
think? That's
babies.
pretty cool, right?
That is unbelievable. That is unbelievable. No, do you go to Halloween parties that
I've
way?
gone to way too many functions on this. With this, I've become shameless at this point. I've done this in front of probably 100,000 people over the years, so it's just like, I've lost any sense of ego or humiliation that comes along. But the whole idea is this, right? The baby sees this, which the baby's first colors that they see are black and white. So you want everything to be sensory for them to kind of engage with this. You might be wearing this, you might look really stupid, but then the baby looks up at you and what they're seeing is, your face and this sensory thing where you're moving it around. It has a baby safe chime in it, black and white colors, the legs move. And so it's like that 30 seconds to capture their imagination and attention, and really at a young age, that sensory, that whole sensory cloud around them. And that really, it's amazing how much it freezes them for that 30 seconds. And we tried all different colors, all different designs. But when we tried this specific design, we saw babies, like their eyes just focus and like freeze. And we're like, this is it, like we're done. And that was the whole purpose of this. And then the whole idea is that if the baby yanks on it, because the big criticism is, well, yeah, the baby's going to yank this down to my poop. Well, guess what? You turn it off, you give this to the baby as a toy, and they play with it.
Everybody. You know what this looks like right now? They're going to put you in the insane asylum.
It looks like
a man is walking around with a penis on his head.
But I love it. He's a corporate lawyer, and now he's walking around with
man has lost his mind.
the complete opposite. And what do you call it?
So the name came from my partner's daughter. She couldn't really speak yet, but she would call it the dingy dangy. She'd be like, oh, dingy dangy. And so we're like, the dingy dangy didn't quite fit, but we started like the dingle dangle. Like we started saying it, and like our kids were saying it. Everyone couldn't forget it. So, that was that.
It's funny, it's memorable, and it's really, really great.
And I got to tell you, what you shared with us earlier is that you next phase is to get licensing with sports teams, and I can tell you, I have a nephew that's your age, and when he was born, I mean, I was just like freaking out that I had a nephew. So, I didn't have any kids, I wasn't even married yet, and I bought him a plush basketball, and and we always said that that was his main toy. He grew up in his crib with that, and he's an awesome basketball fan forever. And like you say, put the Miami Heat.
Oh, this is it. And
thing on there, and the kid's going to be a fan.
And this is it. Like the whole idea is basically that it interconnects. It's modular, so you could turn this into a rattle. And the idea is, yes, like the plush toy is a great example, right? Like most baby products, especially with parents, are stagnant. They just sit there. Whereas this is interactive. You can play with it. You could engage with your baby. So if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, if you're a Philadelphia 76ers fan, you could introduce your favorite teams, your passions to your baby almost from day one, which is, it's kind of exciting because that plush bear will just kind of sit on their shelf and like be there. Whereas this, you're in their kind of space and they're in their face, and they'll start to remember that from a very young age.
A lot of cost though when that stuff.
And I think actually the fact that we're in my home, a 42-year-old man with a penis hanging from his head, I think it's time to have some wine. So
maybe you should put it back on.
We could put that thing away. But to grab take the other one, the one on the other side with the ring around it.
All right.
And I want you to. Stu's relatively not new to wine tasting or drinking, but new to the appreciation of wine.
His father was part of a wine company.
Father's an amazing wine guy.
So you've been around wine.
Yes.
So it's nothing we're going to talk about as far. So let's give it a taste.
This is a breakfast wine.
The best kind. That's nice. Really nice.
Now, is this better than that wine you had in that inn down in England?
Yeah, I would say it was a low bar to cross, but you crossed it.
No, I crossed the bar. So you were drinking the 2022 Saddle Hill Cabernet Sauvignon by Ashenfelter Vineyard, and we're really proud of this wine.
As you should
really
be.
Great.
That is really, really
delicious.
We did one of our episodes. We did a blind test with 2 Napa wines that were $40 that we bought from the store, and we put it against this at our $37, and it really it was the best of the 3, and it was totally an impartial blind test. So we're super excited about this.
This is amazing. Yeah. This is
the next wine we're going to try after you tell us the Shark Tank story and what's next in your life.
If I go slower, do I get to drink more of your wine?
You can drink as much as you want.
There's a little more where that comes from.
Yeah, a little more where that comes from.
But still, as a lawyer, one of the things that, of course, instantly comes to mind is the intellectual property aspect.
Yes.
So, and they do mention all the time on Shark Tank because they want to make sure that no one can rip off and steal your idea. So, at what point did you start to look into intellectual property, and where do you stand on that now?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we got really good advice. People are so quick to jump on and say, I have to get a patent, I have to get this before they even have a product, right? I mean, the truth of the matter is, and I don't know if you guys have any patented products or, anything like that, it's expensive. By the time you get done with your lawyer, your filings, any response you have to have, it's easily 10 grand to get, to even start the process of getting a patent. So we didn't actually file for a patent until, we knew that we had a viable product, till we went around and sold the product. And then we said, okay, now it's time to do this. I think too many early stage businesses make a mistake of spending way too much money up front before they've actually seen if there's a product market fit out there. Because you could get a patent. The truth of the matter is, it's not easy getting a patent. Most products don't lend themselves to patents. And what happens is that people are so focused on getting their patent, they're not actually moving the product along quick enough. And in that intervening period, a lot of times someone else comes out with the same product or does a better version, and you're dead in the water. So we filed probably a year after we started.
And what aspect? Because there's different aspects of every product. What's the uniqueness you filed on?
So we did a systems patent. So the system of the interlocking module design. So and we just received our patent about last year, U.S. patent, which we're very proud of.
And in that interim, you have a patent pending, and you're protected by that, right?
Yeah. So during the patent pending period, you're kind of first in line. So nobody could then jump you with the same idea. But like anything else, patents are a process, and if anyone, no one objected to ours. If someone objects, then it could be, it's a 3 to 5 year process, for most products before you even, get that final patent. But we have ours, and it's really great, especially as an e-commerce product. If somebody on Amazon or another, website tries to knock us off, we have our patent. It's with our patent systems, and we get that taken down right away, which is really quite powerful.
And although it's going to be an easy product to knock off,
yep.
So you got to get out there fast.
Of course,
it's not, it is a sprint.
Yep, it's
right?
a sprint,
and you'll keep revising the patent every time you make a change, right? To keep it extending it.
Yeah, we'll update it as we come out with new products. As different modular attachments, we'll kind of continue to add that. But yeah, that's it. I mean, I think people get too bogged down sometimes in the intellectual property, aspect of it, and lose focus on what they're doing, which is trying to get out there, sell as quickly as possible, and build a brand around that product.
Nice. Talk about, you said, hey, I got something really cool here, and not that you needed the money on Shark Tank or the investment. It was more about the connection and the publicity. Talk about that process. Going through that.
Yeah. So, you go around and everyone's like, you should apply to Shark Tank. You should apply to Shark Tank. And I'm like, well, do you have a connection? I mean, what do you want me to do? Just, yeah. I appreciate that you guys have faith and believe in me.
Cuban?
Yeah. Right. Hey, Mark, I got this baby toy. You want to check it out? But the kind of silly part is that, my journey to Shark Tank started by, Shark Tank has a form online. It asks your name, your website, your product, and it's very simple. Like, it took me about probably 2 minutes. I checked to make sure my name was spelled right, and that was it. I actually got a call back about 4 days later from a producer from Shark Tank.
Quickly.
Quickly. They said, you're good. You're in kind of good spot. We're just starting to look for the new season. Your product is crazy looking, and
they like that.
Yeah, I mean, the more outlandish, it's a television show, right? It's about business, but at the end of the day, it's about entertainment, right? And I have an entertaining product.
And unique.
Yes, and unique, and it kind of checks all the boxes for what I would think Shark Tank is looking for. So that process to get on the show it's pretty rigorous. There's a lot of background checking. They do a lot of checks, a lot of testing. There's kind of off-ramp points, along the way where, they make sure you're fit to be on camera, that you could talk well, that, they make sure there's no issues with your product. It's actually a really rigorous and impressive process because, obviously they have a reputation to uphold and they don't want to, let anything slip through on their side.
It's funny, and compliment to you. Most of the people in Shark Tank are pretty good looking and almost model.
They missed on me, unfortunately.
No, as I said, it's a compliment. They chose you. That's part of the whole thing.
But it was a rigorous process, and it was about I would say almost a year process from when I first applied till when I filmed. So, I was somehow, the odds are very long. I mean, I forget the number they gave, but it's, in the 100, there's like 100,000 or something like that businesses that apply, like, each year, each season, like, or something, some crazy amount of businesses. Maybe that number is too high. But, the fact that we got through, I felt very, proud of that.
And you audition with it, or?
So you do filming, you kind of have to go through the audition processes, doing a lot of kind of videos like this where you're taping yourself, sending it in, because they want to make sure you're not going to get up there and stumble your way through on national television.
Which some people still do.
They do.
Well, it's you're on, the part that's aired is 10 to 12 minutes or something like that. Took 2 or 3 hours.
So I was there pretty much all day. It took, the filming was about an hour. And in all honesty, I had a great experience. The sharks were all lovely. They're very kind of positive. They, it felt like they want you to do well. And, I that kind of gave me confidence, because it is intimidating when you get up there and you're across, 10 feet away from Mark Cuban and Damon John and Lori, people who have been on TV, who are, stars in their own right, who have all this business experience. And it was really a surreal experience.
And how did you pick your ask? Because that's a big part of it. And people blow their whole deal because of that.
So my approach to Shark Tank was it was very kind of pragmatic. I talked to around 7 or 8 other people who had previously, I was put in contact through different connections, and I kind of got this feedback, and the feedback was, don't look like an ass on national television. And
while you're wearing that thing on your head.
That was already given.
Well,
I said, yes,
I'm like the other end.
Yes. You're already going to look like one. Don't make it worse. Now, the feedback I got was, the entrepreneurs who get beat up are the ones who are not self-aware, are the ones who ask for way too much money, who overvalue, who the sharks could easily tell that they're on for the wrong reasons, right? If you go on and, you're asking for, $2 million for 5% of your business, that's only doing, 100,000 in revenue, they know, they could sniff that out real quickly. It's a waste of their time. It's a waste of the television, So my approach was going with something very reasonable, that at the very least, if they don't want to invest, they're going to actually look kindly upon me. I looked at it as a 12-minute, 10-minute commercial for my brand and my product, which it absolutely was. They were very positive. They were very nice. I ended up getting an investment, but I think that even if I didn't, I would have come off okay, right? Because
how much would you pay to be on Shark Tank?
You would have to pay, I would guess, and I've heard the number is, like $5 million in advertising, somewhere around there, right? And, why would I want to create a $5 million commercial that made me look?
And you had online presence before you went on, right?
I did, but nothing crazy. We just had got on Amazon. We had a little bit of social media following, but not crazy. So, this really, Shark Tank, I can't overestimate how thankful I am to them and what they've been able to do for me.
What happened to the sales that night or that day? Or?
Oh, it's crazy. We did a full year of sales within 2 nights. It's just, it goes like
power of Shark Tank.
Yeah, your phone, I have the Shopify app because I run my website off Shopify, and just like every 3 seconds, ding, 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 ding. And it's like, it was really, surreal.
Talk about the negotiations.
Well,
they're sharks. They are sharks, and they're dealing with you, and you really, and like I said, how much would you pay for that? To have one of those people become part of your company is worth so much. So tell me about negotiating with them.
Well, it gets a deal with Kevin O'Leary, right?
Yeah. So everyone on the show, everyone went out, and I had that moment because I actually, unfortunately, saw the contestant before me come out, and she didn't get a deal, and she was really upset. And and I was like, I had the moment where all the sharks went out, and I paused, and I said, I don't want to go back to my friends and family not with the deal. And listen, I knew the risk on the other side that I've seen people kind of beg, and then they get chewed up, and it's like really kind of embarrassing. But I was like, all right, I'm here. I'm gonna make my shot.
And how many sales or revenue were you going on the show with?
Not much.
Because that's going to be their
right. It was about maybe 100,000 or something like that. It was very minimal. We'd done most of our sales through baby shows and everything else. So So yeah, I mean, I can't talk about like the details of any negotiation, but I'll say this, it was very, very fair, very upfront. Like any other business deal or negotiation, there's some give and take. I think both parties just, my business, it's a small business. It's not like an established business that already has, some huge amount of revenue behind it. So it's a flyer, right? And I think it was looked at as a flyer. And for me, I just felt responsible now that, that Kevin O'Leary, who I respect so much, is part of my, a partner in my business, that I want to make sure that whatever deal I do, that he doesn't lose his money, that he makes money, and then I'm one of the businesses he points to that says, I'm proud of this guy. I may never be, and I probably won't ever be his largest business, but I want to be someone that he's proud of, that he's proud that he invested in my business.
Didn't he drop out of the negotiation and you got him somehow hooked him back in?
He did. He did. He dropped out, and and that's where I had my moment. I was like, oh man, like I came all this way, for just to, not get a deal. And I kind of said,
You're still in England and you're flying.
And you just have to I laid my cards on the table. I said, come on, somebody, I know we could do this. I know. And I think he kind of saw the fight in me and saw that, I wasn't willing to give up. And, I think he, in some ways, saw my vision.
He protected himself, right? So $75,000 for 20%. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out. And he's the master of royalties, right?
Yeah.
So he gets $1. Still 75,000 units. He's whole, and he's going to ride the gravy train.
Yeah.
Right?
He's an incredibly smart man. I have nothing but the highest respect for him and his team. So you know what? Listen, you make a deal and you know what you're getting into, both parties, and you hope it works out for and that's where I am.
Their addition to your business, to your label, is incredible.
That's why we, because Kevin's a great wine guy.
He is.
Right?
He is.
I think this is a perfect time to taste our next
and
wine.
we want to toast Kevin O'Leary, because Kevin O'Leary, along with Dingle Dangle, and of course with Stewart Gold's invention and persistence and all the talents you bring, because I got to believe that the talents of being a lawyer, the legal skills you learn, and all the other things in life have come together really to work on this product and really make it a success going forward.
I think the coolest thing is, here you are, you weren't even 40 yet when you picked up and went to London, right? So you had this. I mean, good news was, you worked your ass off and got educated and became a lawyer, so you can kind of take that risk.
Correct.
Because you you make 2 phone calls and you're back in the game if you have to. So you have a gift that not a lot of people that take that
Correct.
leap to follow their passion and do something that really jazzes them, whether it's being an entrepreneur or a writer or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And
kudos to you, man.
Thank you. And I always say, listen, I'm not, I've given very privileged in where I came up, my family who supported me, and, and that's it. Like, not everybody, most people will never be in the position that I was in to take these risks. And, in a way, I felt that I owed it, if you're in a position to do that, then, I feel you squander that position, it just didn't sit right. So, yeah, I mean, I've been put in a very fortunate position to take these
But
risks.
I also think that, folks like yourself, I see this all the time. This is not going to be your first rodeo.
Yeah.
It's not going to be your last. You're going to do something else, whether it's, Dingle Dangle related or the new Dingle Dangle.
His father, Lou Gold, has had a lot of rodeos.
He's had a lot.
And he's made them all kind of work.
Well, you know what I'd love
But it's
to-
not without failure either,
No doubt.
as every successful entrepreneur knows.
So let's taste the 2018 Aperture. Obviously, a lot more age than the Saddle Hill Cab, but again, an all 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. But this is from Napa, California.
To you,
Not New Jersey.
Cheers. Thank you guys for having me on the show.
it's
I
our
really
pleasure, and to the
appreciate it.
success of Dingle
I gotta
Dangle.
tell you,
whatever
while we're
comes
tasting
next.
this, I'm not quite done yet I'm not done with Stewart yet.
Wow,
That is nice.
It's really nice.
Wow.
really nice.
But now we're talking about, over $137.
Yeah.
I don't say it's 3 times nicer,
Yeah.
right? It's nice.
Correct.
This is a beautiful wine.
It's really nice
This is delicious.
So talk about because I think our viewers are going to and listeners are going to love to hear about, the family, somewhat of a family business, right? You work for family, even though it was very distant. Your dad was a strategy guy and, you were in the trenches. So talk about that, because I think that's pretty interesting for
Yeah, I work for, I would say not directly for my father, but his company, which, it's family business. When you're in business with family, it can be tricky. But, the one thing about my dad, he's one of the most successful, financially people that, I know, which is crazy. But he's really one of the most, in all honesty, he's one of the most humble people. He's one of the most,
Unbelievable.
my dad is the type of guy who will spend as much time, I know it's cliche, but he'll spend as much time with the night janitor as he will with, his chief operating officer. And I think, from my dad, and his legacy is really, to me, it's about that. It's about how he has treated people through his life. I mean, you can't go around the room of people, of friends, where if you ask them to raise their hand how many people has Lou Gold helped, I would probably say 90% of the people in that room would raise their hand. And to me, more so than the business aspect, like I want to model my life after him and after his kind of his way of living. He is a real joy for life. He's battled some really hard times. He's had cancer. He's gone through a whole host of things that could have easily set a lesser person back. But there was a drive in me to do more and to do better and to make him proud in some way, and not just kind of follow in the path that was set out for me, but to kind of maybe step out of that a little bit and make him proud and kind of follow in his footsteps a little bit.
You have. We've talked to him. You made him very proud.
So we also talk about entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. And other than the risk, financial risk, personal risk, the time it takes.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it's much easier to have a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah. I mean, some days I feel like I want to go live in a cave in Norway or something to kind of I'm like, what did I do getting out of a stable job where I was making great money and I knew what I was going to do every day? Entrepreneurship is kind of like, it's kind of like learning to walk in a way, right? You don't know how to walk until you practice it. And, you don't know how to run a business until you practice it. And I've made so many mistakes, wrong manufacturers, wrong product designs, getting on the wrong platform, spending money on the wrong marketing. If I knew what I knew now, I think I could be 10 times farther along. And that's why I think so many entrepreneurs succeed on their second or third or fourth business, because their first business, not that it wasn't great, but it was just a training ground on how to practice on how to run a business. So I'm hoping that's not the case for me. I hope this is a huge success. But the skills I've gotten, and there's no one else. I have a warehouse, a few miles down the road here, and I'm doing the packing, I'm doing the shipping, everything comes through me. I check all the products, and there's nothing too big or too small, which I won't do. There's no one to pass any work off onto. I have to do your own accounts, your own booking, your own taxes, your own, there's no other person. This is it. So.
With all that knowledge you've gained, are there other ideas floating around your head?
Yes. I mean, I'm not sure I'll go back into a product-based business. I really think what's interesting is, kind of the AI revolution that's going on now, and how that's kind of revolutionizing service-based businesses, especially healthcare. I think there's a huge opportunity, in the next few years to look at how you could lay AI over a lot of broken healthcare processes. And I have a friend, a very close friend, who is incredible at AI and does all the technology for the PGA. And we've been talking a lot and what we could do to maybe develop something in a technology space coming.
And then when you talk about from the product side, especially stuff like yours, people come up with this idea, whether, through a hanger or whatever, and now 3D printers, right? So you can do, where prototypes would cost thousands and thousands of dollars, you're doing with 3D printing right now.
This is it. And actually it's funny, I have a picture. We bought a 3D printer off Amazon in 2020, one of the first kind of commercial models. It was so loud, he would run it, my partner would run it at night, and we live in the same building. I could hear it humming, making crazy sounds, because he would print the end caps to all our things, because it would cost us around $200 to make one end cap, but we could make on the 3D printer for, we bought the machine for $200, so we'd make dozens of them. I think the technology that's available to young people now, to anyone who wants to get, it's incredible. And really the time between idea and whether you could figure out if you have, a good idea or not has been shortened by maybe 100-fold, right?
Yep.
And that's the key. You could either succeed or fail much quicker. You don't have to spend 10 years and then fail. You could spend, 3 months and then fail and move on, or succeed.
Bill, there's a point that you touched on a little while ago or earlier in the show about getting the rights, the properties rights to the sports entities, so that you could put the logo of a team on the product. And those are very, very costly,
yes,
obviously, but you don't need any more proof of how valuable they are, Bill. We're all Philadelphia Eagle fans. In the recent 2025 NFL playoffs, A.J. Brown, a member of the Philadelphia Eagles, is on the bench, and he's reading a book. And they close in on the book, and that book goes from number, like 500,000 on the Amazon list, overnight to number one. Overnight, it sold over 500,000 books. Now, the NFL charges these huge properties rights to put their logos on stuff. And the next game, I'm with my kids, I'm pointing out, I go, look in that bench area on either side and really anywhere on the field. There is nothing there that is not licensed by the NFL, nothing. And the only thing that ever snuck in this whole season, probably anywhere in the league, was that book. And look what it did. So if you're selling NFL properties rights and you're charging those rights, you need look no further, or point to no further than look at the value of our property right to be associated with
A.J.
us.
Brown to put my book there.
Yeah.
That would have been
And
like
you,
a
as a
game
published
changer.
author, you did this great book, and you reached the New York Times bestseller list. This guy did nothing but
Amazon bestseller.
Amazon. Much.
That's even more impressive, I think.
I
Amazon
was gonna
is like,
say, it's actually interesting because I'm really competitive and I knew nothing. My book didn't start as a book. It turned out like I was sending a massive letter to my family. And, so they knew what was going on in my life before they were around. And I would have done it, and actually book number 2, if I do come out with it, will be done totally different.
Yeah.
You sell them before the book comes out. You're almost a New York Times bestseller, and if you know anything about it, it's the week you publish, the week it comes out, and who your competition is. Because you could I sold 1,000 books on pre-order, but that week there was obviously multiple books that came out that did more. So if you pick the right week, you could be a New York Times bestseller and not be a very good book.
Yeah.
It's kind of a crazy system.
AJ, we
That's
got a
the
book
panache.
for you to read. Bring it in.
Well, Stu, this was absolutely fabulous. We really want to thank you for being on the show. You're exciting. I know one thing, I can guarantee it. You're going to be back, and you're going to be telling the Dingle Dangle story or something else.
I hope so.
Cheers.
I hope so.
Cheers,
Cheers.
my man.
Thank you guys very much
really
for having me.
appreciate it.
This has been
Thank you so
a really
much, Tim.
fun time.
And thank you all.
Thank you,
for tuning in.
guys. Thank you.
Uncorked. We will see you next time.